I bought this Royal Enfield Bullet 500 recently, and we got this Harley-Davidson Street Bob in to review. Have I made the right or the wrong decision buying this bike?
Now this channel was very much started with Harley-Davidson videos, and if you've been with us all those years, you'll remember those videos maybe 6 or 7 years ago when we were doing pretty much just Harley-Davidson content, mainly because the old man had a Harley. He owned one at the time and has owned 3 of them, and I worked for a Harley dealer. So this was really what we were mainly passionate about at the time, and we still are. We still love these motorcycles, and this Street Bob is a really fantastic example of a Harley-Davidson. It's got the proper essence of what Harley is all about. It's a beautiful machine to look at. It's got a stunning engine. It looks like a beautiful classic V-twin with the right exhaust. It will sound like a proper Harley. They can't make them sound like proper Harleys from the factory anymore, unfortunately, but that's not their fault. But this is a really, really fantastic bike. But for what we do and where we live, and we said this before, perhaps it's not the right machine. And that's why we've sort of gone down the route of bikes like these Royal Enfields, because they suit where we live down to the ground, don't they?
Yes, that's right, and we still absolutely adore the Harley-Davidsons. We've been riding this around and it's absolutely phenomenal, incredible. And this is a completely different kettle of fish. But just coming down to this spot here on this country lane to park up here and do the talking, this was easy to park and manoeuvre, whereas the Harley-Davidson wasn't. And of course you wouldn't buy a Harley-Davidson to come into rutted country tracks. You buy it for the open roads, the freeways and the Route 66 and those long distance rides, and they're fantastic for that, or the city rides even, boulevard cruising and whatever you might call it. I mean, they're perfect for that. It is horses for courses.
This particular lane that we've come to here is not far away from where we live, and this is very similar to a lot of the lanes where we are. It's a single track country lane. It's beautiful, it's very quiet. But it's not really suited for motorcycles like this Harley. And this Harley wants to unleash its full potential. It wants to unleash the beast. And it can't really do that on these single track lanes. So it constantly feels like it's just hungry to go for it.
Yeah.
So when you do get out on a dual carriageway or a motorway or a wider road, then you really do start to enjoy this bike. But if you're mainly riding on roads like this, then it's not the right motorcycle, is it?
No, especially in this 117 cubic inch guise. It does, like Darcy said, it's not snatchy, but it does want to go.
Yeah.
The 114 is more mellow, like we said in our review.
And the 107 is...
Yeah, and the 107 is even more so. Even though it's a little bit sort of perky,
oh my God, there's loads of
perky.
wasps.
Oh, there's a wasp. Don't drop the bike. It's understand. Doesn't like wasps.
Did it fall off?
When he was about 4 or 5, we went to this country show and he was stung by wasps in his shirt and he's hated them ever since. So he'll be back.
I've got a phobia. I need to be hypnotised.
Yeah, for lots of reasons. One of the things you see, that I've made this mistake very many times in the past. I buy a bike based on yes, look at it, it's fantastic, I've got to have it, it's amazing. Without thinking too much about practicality and where I live and where I ride. And I've made the decisions based on the bike, not the other things. This bike, the Royal Enfield Bullet 500 Trials version, I also love. I love the look of it, and it's very characterful. But it's also extremely practical because it's brilliant at these country lanes. Of course, it doesn't have the torque and the power and the speed that the Harley does. But that doesn't matter in roads like this. So really I've learned, it's taken me a long time, but I've learned that it's better to consider all the factors, and this is helpful for you. First of all, think, where do you ride? What sort of riding do you do? What are you likely to do? And then choose the bikes that you like based on those factors. And of course, looks do come into it. We're always going on about looks of a motorcycle, but it's really important to get a bike that you love the look of, but at the same time suits your needs.
I suppose the big question is, you know, do you miss the R18, and did you make the right choice? Should you have kept it and not bought that?
Yeah, it's a weird thing, to be honest. Again, I think I bought the R18 with that feeling of like, oh wow, what a bike, I've got to have it. It's very quirky, it's very unusual. It is a tremendous bike. I bought it when I lived in Wales. It's the most inappropriate bike for where I live. This would have been fantastic.
That would have been way better.
So it was the wrong bike to buy then. And then, of course, once you've bought it, then you've committed and you've paid the money and it's going to depreciate. And the R18s have depreciated terribly. And therefore, I didn't sell it. I would have sold it sooner, to be honest. If it had kept its value, I'd have probably sold it 2 years ago. So it was the wrong bike to buy. I do like it. But then getting back onto the Harleys are better bikes for that style and that genre of bikes. There's no doubt about it. There's no compromises with the Harley. They're flipping cool, good looking. You've got a V-twin engine. It's not so wide, so there's nothing getting in the way. You can do anything on it and you can ride it properly. So, no, I don't regret selling the R18. I kind of regret buying it. I thought it might be a bike to hold on to that might go up in value in time, but I don't think it will. Well, it probably
might
will
do in 30 years.
But I don't want to wait 30 years.
But then it's like you say with classic bikes now, the values of classic bikes from the 60s and stuff is sort of going down because the people who lusted after them are no longer with us. So there's no one who wants to buy them.
Yeah, that's very true.
So the demand's not there. It's different with cars because you've got, you know, Ferraris from the 60s that are fetching $20 million or whatever, which is crazy. But with motorbikes, it seems to be completely different. You know, you can buy a 1960 bike for $3,000.
Yeah, they've come down a lot, haven't
they? Is it? Yeah.
Now, one of the things about the R18 was that when you're riding it and you meet a bunch of guys on Harleys, you do feel, oh, I should be on Harley.
Really?
You do.
Yeah.
So.
I did like that bike though. It had a good, amazing character.
Oh yeah, I mean it is phenomenal. But I mean those cylinders stick out. I mean riding it, you can ride it. It's not a problem. But in manoeuvring it, if you're having to push it with your legs, they get in the way.
So
you can't stretch your feet out.
Gear, then
you need that reverse.
Yeah.
So it is a compromise motorcycle, the R18. As cool as it is, and as amazing as it is definitely a compromise. But like I said, for the Harley, that sort of bike, it's not a compromise, it's the perfect version of what that bike is. So yeah, I've moved on from that. But now I've got the Royal Enfield Bullet 500, which is really characterful and fun. You have to have a ride on it soon.
Yeah, I've not ridden
It's such a nice bike to ride on these lanes. And as I said, if I want to do a longer journey, I could get in contact with Harley-Davidson or Royal Enfield and get a bigger capacity bike that would be perfect for it. So I don't need to have my personal bike for that. And also, you know, that would explain it to some people who've got only 3 or 4 brain cells who say, "Oh, I'm unsubscribing because you bought the wrong bike." And well, it's my bike that we'll see in some videos, and in lots of other videos there'll be Triumphs, there'll be Harley-Davidsons, there'll be all sorts of things, won't there?
Yep.
But some people don't get that, do they?
No, they throw all their toys out the pram. Now, my old Harley-Davidson, the Softail Standard, which I sold a couple of weeks or a month ago now, was practically the same bike as this, but with a slightly smaller engine and a terrible name. So it took me a while to sell that bike, but mainly because when I started to sell it, it was about August. We had terrible weather last August. We didn't have a particularly good summer in the UK, and it took until March for the sun to come out again. And as soon as the sun came out, it sold instantly that week. So it just shows you that, you know, in this country, people don't want to ride in the winter. I mean, I don't blame them. I think if we weren't making videos about motorbikes, I probably wouldn't either. You know, I've been there, done that, and it's not particularly enjoyable. But the reason I've sold the Harley, and I've said this before, is again because it's not the right bike for these areas. I fell in love with the modern classics, and they're just more practical for what we do.
Now we've got this Harley, Darcy, I mean, how does it make you feel getting onto this? Because it's a similar bike to what you had.
Well, it did worry me at first, because I was worried that I was going to go, oh, I want one of those now. And my initial impressions were, you know, it put a massive smile on my face. I thought, oh, this is so cool. This is brilliant. And I do really love it. It's fantastic. This is probably my favourite Harley, really, the Street Bob. It always has been. Even from when I was a kid, I always liked the Dyna Street Bobs. So this is the ultimate Harley for me. But after riding it a few times and riding it where we typically ride to, I wouldn't want this over my bare 650. So I've definitely made the right decision. I've got the right bike for me and for what I do. But if I was still having to do rides to Wales 3 hours to see the old man, then I probably would still have the Harley, because it's a perfect bike for doing that. But now that I'm not needing to do long journeys, if I did need to do a long journey like that, occasionally I could get a press bike like this one and do that. Now, we also love various different other manufacturers of motorcycles. We love the Triumph Bonneville range, especially the T100 and the T120. They're beautiful motorcycles and they're fantastic to ride. They really are brilliant bikes. So why didn't we buy one of those? Well, the main thing is really the price. Like this Bullet 500 Trials is just over £3,500. I mean, that's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. And there's, you know, this is not really going to depreciate any more than that. If anything, over the next few years, this will probably start to climb up, especially because this is a limited edition model. And obviously the Bear, I haven't bought that particular Bear, but it has to go back to Royal Enfield in 6 months' time. And then I'm going to buy one. So everything I put on that Bear, I can take off and put on the new Bear.
So far, riding it, do you still feel like you want to buy one?
Yeah, totally. I love it. Every time I get off of it, I look back at it, and obviously I've not ridden it much yet because I've only had it for a few days. But every time I stop somewhere, someone talks to me about it. So it really does grab attention. It's a beautiful motorcycle. And then you could say to me, oh, why didn't you look at the Triumph Scrambler 900 then? Well, I think the Bear is probably more off-road capable. I haven't ridden the Scrambler 900, so I do need to do that. But also I think the Bear looks nicer. I think it's a better looking motorcycle personally. And it's £3,000 less expensive. So when I do buy one, I've saved myself £3,000 over the Triumph. And, you know, if it depreciates a bit, that's fine. But I'm not going to lose as much money overall than I would if I bought a more expensive bike. And I've learnt that lesson because I bought the Harley for £13,000. I sold it for £9,000. Yeah. And it was through a dealer, so I got £8,500. So, you know, I lost a fair bit of money on that bike, and, you know, I don't really want to do that again. No,
and I've lost a huge amount on the R18, so it's a terrible blow to the wallet.
Yeah.
But then you got the bigger Triumph Scramblers, the 1200s, but I think they're overkill for what they are, really, to be honest. I think the perfect size for a Scrambler is about 650.
Yeah. 1200 is massive.
Yeah,
it's so tall as well.
It's far too powerful. Off-road, it's too much of a handful.
You've got to know what you're doing.
Yeah, you have, and it's not right. I mean, it's a cool bike, but
yeah, I like them. They are cool.
Yeah, 650 is just right. The right weight, the right power, the right amount of torque. It's easy to use. That's what you want in a Scrambler. Now, I did have one little problem with this bike already, and that is from first to second gear. Sometimes it just hits neutral. But yesterday we were out riding, and at one point I went from first to second, it went to neutral. I couldn't get it into second at all. So I looked up some videos on YouTube, and the beauty of YouTube, isn't it? It's fantastic. And basically the clutch needs to be adjusted just so, and there was literally no free play in the clutch. It was as tight as a something. And so therefore it's easy to adjust down the side here. So I've put a bit more free play in it, and since I've done that, touch wood, it hasn't actually done it, so I think I fixed it. So I was thinking I'm going to have to take it back to the dealer for a warranty fix, but it's just literally fine-tuning the adjustment, because these are very mechanical machines. It's not a synchromesh gearbox, and the clutch has got to be just right in the adjustment. And there's a little technique for changing gear on these as well. Apparently, to go from first to second, you hold your foot and then release the clutch just before you let go of your foot, and that keeps it in gear. So they're little quirks on these bikes, but that's part of its character, so I don't mind.
So the question of, have we made the right decision in selling our cruisers and opting for motorcycles like this? And for us, yes, we have made the right decision. But for you, that might be totally different, because everybody is different, everybody's got different preferences, everybody lives in a different environment. So you've got to think about those factors that we've talked about in this video to help you decide what motorcycle is the right bike for you. Because even if you love a motorcycle like this, and we do, it's just not the right bike for where we live. And if I lived in America, I would 100% own a Harley-Davidson again. Definitely.
Yeah, or if my daily needs were, if I had to, say, ride to Birmingham, which is like an hour and 20 minutes away, 4 times a week, I'd get that, I wouldn't get this. So it totally depends on your needs. But for what our needs are, like you said, we have made the right choice.
That's it. So hopefully you like our choice, but if you don't, that's fine. So we will see you in the next video for something interesting. So subscribe, it'll be great, whatever it is. Hopefully.
Hope so.